Hey everybody, and welcome to the Ghost Corp. This is Aaron. Today we're going to cover a Nekroz deck build, 2020. I know you guys know that the ban list came out recently. With that, there were no bans, but there were releases, and we had Unicorn at 3. I'm only playing it at 2, as you guys can clearly see it with some other text, and I'll explain why as we get into the profile. As you guys also know, Multi-Faker came off the ban list, or came to 3, and then so did Konahawk, I think, as well. That doesn't really matter as much. I mean, they're probably fans of that deck, not to hate on you guys, but anyways, like, the importance is that Unicorn came off, so let's get into the profile. Starting off, we have Christia. That's one of the fairies that I can search off Ben 10, as you can see here. This is the light fairy package for the deck. We have Christia, Manju, and Herald of Perfection. You guys will see why I play Herald of Perfection in a little bit. But I play Christia over Vanity's Ruler because it's a free special sub with Zaborg. Way better than a lot of people think, because you contribute this away. It doesn't matter that you can't special summon. The main thing is that your opponent can't, and that's the importance of that. Next up we play is 2 Manju, because Manju is just so good for fixing hands or searching out missing pieces. As you guys know, Nekroz is a going first or second deck, so you really don't want to max this out too much because you already have a couple other normal summons. You have 1, 2, 3, 4 other normal summons, which either come in Christie as a Borg or that. Next up we have is Herald of Perfection. As you guys can see right beside it, I play Ben 10, and you guys know that the spell lets you add back a monster that you attributed, so I just use that for getting the extra negate in my hand. That automatically gives you 2 free negates. You can also attribute either a Brio that you want to actually activate after you have the negate on board, or you contribute the Talismandra, which you also want back to your hand that's already on board. So you can reveal that there are a couple cute combos with that. I'll let you guys test it out on your own. Next up we have Benton. This is mainly for searching out the Christia and Manju. It's very great in the Zaborg play as well. You send 3 Herald of Arclight to your graveyard, and then for your last fairies in graveyard, you tribute with Valk, and you get the 4th in graveyard, special to Christia, and then you add back the Benton for the following play with the Valkyries to search out the Manju, and that is just fantastic for netting pluses in this deck. I already explained the Dawn of the Herald. As you guys can see, this is just primarily to search out Dawn of the Herald for preparation of rites. Next up we have is Saravis. A lot of people love this card just for the fact that you can negate targets. A lot of people play it mainly for that reason. I play it for that reason, for protecting Zaborg and Unicorn, whatever else like Christia, because in Perm, everything else heavy targeting in this format. You need to play this. You can also special this off of the incantation spell Inception. This has effect on field, where if your opponent special summons, you can bounce this card back to your hand and banish that card and negate the summon. So it's a fantastic card for that as well. You can use both effects in one turn, and neither one is once per turn, so you can actually put multiple on board. Next up, I play Zaborg. I do not like the Extravagance because it is so main phase 1 reliant. And if they negate that, or you banish pieces of your extra deck you need, it just hurts so much. Zaborg is, like, not searchable in this deck at least. But the fact of the matter is, you can put 2 incantations on board so easily, so I just don't see any reason not to play it. And you get to dump 8 from your extra deck, plus 4 or plus 3 or 4 from your extra deck, and dump your opponent's extra deck if you tribute a light monster, which is not hard to set up. That's mainly why I play this. You can pop any card in the field as well, so that's also why it's so good. If you're trying to enter a grind game, you can tribute your Christia for 1 tribute, if this Christia or one of the Zaborgs were properly tribute summoned. As you guys previously saw, I was playing Vanity's Ruler, or not Vanity's Ruler, Vanity's Fiend, because I didn't want my opponent to special summon. You can easily put one of these on board, so you can just tribute the Vanity's Fiend if you do that. But in this build, I'm playing a little bit different because I have these cards now. Next up, I have part of the incantation engine, Talismandra for 2, Bookstone for 1, a Candle for 2, and Pencil Plume for 3, and then last but not least, Chalice Line for 3. This incantation engine honestly fixes a lot of ritual decks. It's a toolbox in itself because it either gets you from the deck, gets your ritual monster from deck, gets your ritual spell from graveyard, gets your ritual spell from deck, or gets your ritual monster from graveyard. And Nekroz are very toolbox reliant. You're basically using the effects during your turn mainly because you're not going to use any other effects besides Valk or maybe Trish during your opponent's turn. There are a couple ways you can use the other ones during your opponent's turn, like Megalith Oach. I'll explain that tech in a second. But mainly you're just using these to like basically fix your hand or get the proper levels on board. That's why I play these specific ratios of which ones I think you want to open or want to follow up with. And mainly, I play 3 Pencil Plume because you can start with this card at 3 and go to any of these. You're usually not going to go to Bookstore turn 1, so that's why I only really need to play it at 1. And you also have pre-prep to add back from the grave, so you really don't need that as well. Secondly, I play Talismandra because it's just so good. You always want to see a ritual monster in your hand, and if you have a ritual monster in hand, like these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 incantations, which your entire deck is mainly rituals, you're going to be relying on these the most. So that's why I play that. Now, the reason I play 3 of these and 3 of these is because you can always start off with these. These are probably the best incantation starters in your deck. Mainly Chalice Line, because you can keep this in your hand and discard another card you don't need or discard a card you want in the graveyard. And then you can start your play off whatever incantation you special basically from that by itself. Now, Chalice Line actually works very well with Inception. Not just because you can ritual summon with it, but because you can special summon 2 incantations from your deck by sending 1 from the field and 1 from your field or hand to the graveyard. It's very good in that aspect. Now, next up we have is Megalith Oach. Megalith Oach basically, its effect says you can, when this card is summoned, you can draw 1, discard 1. Its next effect is the reason I play it, is because you can ritual summon during your opponent's turn or your turn during the main phase, just by attributing monsters from your field or hand to the graveyard, and ritual summon without activating a spell. And that's why it's so good, because you can Trish during your opponent's turn, you can Sophia during your opponent's turn. And that's one of the main reasons I play Sophia. I was actually previously playing it at 2, but now that we have Unicorn at 3, I just wanted to try it at 2, and I didn't want to draw multiple of these because my ratio for the spells is at 5, not 6. And I'm not as worried about the die roll in this format, I guess you could say. But the reason I play this is because you can do Och, you can special incantations. You're going to usually special Och from the Inception. That's the only way you can do it in my build. And then you're going to ritual summon during your opponent's turn, which you really won't have any issues with doing Sophia because you're usually not summoning during your opponent's turn anyways, which lets you banish from field, graveyard, and hand. You just basically conserve your hand, hit your opponent at their choke point, and they really can't follow up with that. You have a 33 beater on board, or no, 36 beater on board, and usually they can't recover after like wiping their board and hand, and like it's just hard for them to recover. Next up we have is Trish. You don't really want to play 2. I don't feel like I need to explain that too much. Valk, a lot of people play 1 to 3, so I'll explain this while I'm playing 2. Because I play Pencil Plume at 3, you can easily add it back from your graveyard to your hand. Also, because you're playing Unicorn at 2 or 3, I prefer 2, you can basically add it back from your graveyard to your hand, and that's the theory on that. Next up, best Nekroz in the deck, because it's like the biggest starter or biggest toolbox piece in the deck, is Brio. Not only because it searches Nekroz monsters, but because it can bounce back to extra deck monsters. That's why I say this deck, it doesn't matter if you go first or second, because Kaleidoscope, because you can ritual summon this so easily, just off incantation levels, off of Kaleidoscope, off of Shirt. It's just very, very easy to establish on board. So that's why I think it's like one of the MVPs of the deck. Next up, this is a highlight of the deck, in my opinion. Unicorn, because most extra deck or decks in general of this format are extra deck reliant, unless you're playing against, like I mentioned before, Ultra because Multi-Faker came off the list. That's the only thing you're going to really have to be wary of. But you don't want to play 3 of this, because if you open 3 and like nothing else besides the Kaleidoscope, you're basically just playing off of 1 Unicorn, or maybe a cute combo with Bahamut Shark, and that's usually not enough. Like 1 interruption, usually isn't enough to deal with your opponent's board, and you'd rather just do the extra deck monster negate and play protect the castle from there. Next up we have is Colossus. I only play one because I've drawn into two and I just couldn't use the second one, so I just never want to entertain the possibility of ratios really hitting like a sour spot. I'd rather hit the sweet spot of it and be able to grind like my toolbox through if I really need it again. Because of the spells in this deck, mainly because of cycle, you can always get this back, or you can always put it on board through a pencil plume or a shirt. It's not hard to do, trust me. Next up we have is shirt. I've already explained this before in the previous profile. You only really need one. No other reason besides that. You can use it twice in one duel depending on how you want to go about it. Next up we have is preparation of rites. It searches you out basically your entire ritual package of your deck, whatever you need, Chalice Slime, a Brio, Unicorn, you've got it, because this searches out level 7s or below. It also helps you get back your spells, ritual spells from the graveyard, including Dawn of the Herald if you really don't use it and you want to get back your Herald of Perfection and you're just not being greedy, but I always do the greedy play, or I want my level 6 back, so I always like add that back anyways. These ratios are pretty standard. Not everybody plays Inception, but I think it's necessary because if you open Inception with Chalice Slime, it's just so good. Next up, I'll enter the extra deck. We have Quasar, we have Shooting Quasar, and we have Insector Exobeetle. Now, the reason I put these together is just to highlight the old combo where you summon 2 Brios off Kaleidoscope by sending the level 12. The level 12 in this scenario is going to be Quasar. You're going to make the Exobeetle. This is usually going second play. And then you're going to use the Exobeetle to basically send or equip it to that. And then you're going to wait for the Shooting Star to, or not the Shooting Star, for the Quasar to leave your field and special the Shooting Star. And that's one of the easiest ways to get 2 big monsters on board in this deck besides Kaleidoscope, or just besides like properly playing your deck. But that's one of the cheap ways to get a monster on your deck, the cute old combo. So I thought I'd highlight it. Next up we have his Elder Entity, Entis. Entis is basically here for the Kaleidoscope, but you can mainly, the reason I play 3 is because you're usually going to use it for Zaborg, and against like heavy board presence decks, where they basically exhausted all the other negates to stop your incantations, supposedly, you baited out all those negates, you just use the, Zaborg, send the Antithesis to the graveyard and get 3 free pops, or however many free pops you really need to deal with that situation. You send them from your extra deck to the graveyard. Next up we have is the Herald of the Arclight. Now the reason I play Arclight is mainly because I just want the free searches. I'm such a greedy player, as you guys probably saw in other profiles, and not just Team Sam's profile, but a couple other profiles. There's a 1-card combo with this. It's so degenerate, but I prefer not to play that combo because it's highly susceptible to hand traps, and I really just do not like playing other hand traps in my deck because it just takes away from the, I guess just fluidity of the deck. It really takes away from it. Like, if you have a hand trap and like maybe one other ritual in your hand and you can't do anything with that, you're just like stuck. And I don't like being that place of stuck. And that's one of the other reasons I don't really play the Deskbot engine in it, even though I think it's really cute, uninterrupted. But it's not worth it long term and theories of this deck, and it'll work out, but only if you're uninterrupted and you have to play other answers like Call by the Grave and things like that, which is highly unlikely for me to play, in my opinion. Next up we have Brionic. You can honestly play any level 6. You can play Shaddolls, you can play whatever level 6 you want. I just prefer this because Brio matches. Maybe in the future I'll come up with a Q combo with level 6 because Dragma is a thing, but at the moment I'm just going to play this Zaborg build. You can actually combine Zaborg and Dragma. I've done it before, but there's some inconsistency issues you got to work on, so just be mindful of that. Next up, I play Omega, not just for the Zaborg and for shuffling from my graveyard or my opponents for certain cards, but now you can send the Omega to the graveyard, summon 2 Unicorn from your hand, same as the theory of sending Quasar to summon 2 of these. And then it's funny because both of those plays net you 2 monsters. One nets you a Exobeetle and a Shooting Star. The other gets you a Bahamut Shark and a Totally Awesome, which then allows you to steal one of your opponent's cards or monsters. And then you can basically use the Bahamut Shark again to special back and just keep grinding it out. There's a Zaborg play with this where you don't have to send the Omega. You can actually just do the 12 play with the Valk and the this. Search out another level 4 or have an incantation on board, and then use that incantation to summon the second unicorn, make the Bahamut Shark, and then your board will basically end with a Christia, Bahamut Shark, a Valkyrus, whatever other rituals or cards you need in your hand that you added off Zaborg or already had, or drew into off Valkyrus, and totally awesome, which is pretty good in my opinion when you play like other hand traps like Saravis and Valks in your deck. It just makes the deck like it's like the cherry on top. Next up we have is the Daigusto Emerald. This card is mainly for like recycling things. Like I said before, it's a toolbox deck, so you need things like this. You can make rank 4s. Besides just the Unicorn play, you can make the Manju play. Manju's clear level 4. You can also play other XZs, or yeah, you can either play other rank 4 XYZs, but I wouldn't really recommend it. Besides like Dweller and maybe Exiton Knight, those are the only ones I really see viable in this deck. But it's really up to personal preference. Next up, I've already explained this, Zaborg and Bahamut Shark. There you go. Next up is Nephthys, the Sacred Flame. I play this a lot in Nekroz because I just don't know what to put as my last slot usually. And I'm not that greedy that I need to play 2 totally awesome. So usually I'm going to be playing this over a lot of other things because you can just make this an untargetable beater. It's 4,800 attack by sending 3 rituals from your field to the graveyard. Usually you won't have to do this unless you're playing against a weird matchup. Not really weird, but an annoying matchup like Sky Striker, and you just want to completely like hurt them immediately because they just can't grind through this. They really are going to struggle against this card. So those are the types of matchups where this comes up. Now let's get into the side deck. We're going to talk about the going second heavy monster presence things. The first one is Winged Dragon of Ra. The main reason I use it is just because you don't need to rely on your normal summon as much. You side out your going first cards like Christia or Saravis, depending on the matchup, and one of the Zaborgs, maybe in the Sophia. You don't just use the Sophia for stunning from extra deck, so you can really play a second Sophia if you feel like it. I explain why I don't in this current build. But you side out those cards for the Spear modes and for the Dark Ruler No More, just for those. Now, Danko Seka is good for going first or second, just because you play Valkyrus. You can basically play Protect the Castle and stun your opponent from setting cards if that's really their win con in their deck. This is the fastest way to deal with that. Another option for rituals that's searchable, my favorite tech card is Odd Eyes Gravity Dragon. A lot of people have seen this in my previous profile. I always credit this card with me winning because I usually summon Unicorn Valk and this on board. And by that time it's 51 plus 28, which is usually game when you're attacking into monsters, and then your opponent has to pay life points to activate any card on their field or graveyard or hand. So this is basically like a chain energy for your opponent that giant true nades their cards. You can also use this with Och. I wouldn't recommend it unless you think you're going first. But because Och's main phase, you don't really need to do that as often. So just, unless you're like being greedy, don't do that. This is mainly for distributing off Inception with Chalice Slime or whatever other incantation ritual you need. Next up, the mid-level cards that are going for first or second. Back to that preference is going to be Dance Princess. I play Dance Princess mainly because I don't want to be Solemn Judgment, and I don't want my opponent targeting my ritual monsters. So it's like a component to a Saravis and a Sense, but mainly for the Nekroz monsters you want to protect. You can also play Sacred Village, which I was doing before, but I'm not afraid of Sky Strikers this format or any other spell deck, so I don't really need to do it. I'd rather play some Spice and show you guys some Spice. Next up we have is going to be Magician of Black Chaos. The reason I play this is mainly because of Och. You can summon this during your opponent's turn. A lot of people are going to be seeing this played pretty often. It's very spicy. You can set this up with the Zaborg play. You can set it up with the Incantation play. They're all mainly 3 to 4 card combos. You don't have to overcommit, and you can usually read your opponent's sequence. The reason that a lot of people are successful with decks like Nekroz is mainly because they have knowledge of the formats and they know how to properly resource. That's why they can get away with playing Spice like this. Now, if you really want to experiment with that, I'd suggest go ahead and try that. But if you don't think you're ready for it or you don't have enough knowledge of the format, try to study up on it a little bit more before you try this tech out. Or just go hard and try it out. Try it out as soon as you want. The only reason I was really able to get to this theories anyway is because I actually try out a lot of weird techs, so that's why I'm here. And next up, the last tech we have is Magician of Chaos. So I was playing the regionals where I got top 17, or top 16, I don't remember. But the reason I play this is mainly because it's so good against Mystic Mind, stupid cards like that, where you're going to side against them and you don't know exactly what they're playing. So when they activate card effects, this is basically like Lord of Red, and you want to pop those cards on activation, like continuous spells or traps or anything like that, or anything that needs to resolve on board. You use this mainly for those. Another reason you can use it is to special the Magician of Black Chaos. Usually this isn't going to be dying though that often when you have this in hand, so just be mindful of that. When you side it, that's the end of the deck profile. Now, if you guys have any questions, comments, or concerns, please feel free to comment down in the comment section below. I usually get back to comments, and so do our other admins. So yeah, definitely appreciate it. This is Aaron from Ghost Corp signing out.